So getting into the first portion of that, let's say, it's place, it's space that becomes a place of revelation. What is being revealed is the call. One can say the call for divinity, for Shekhinah out of its exile, and one can say the preparation and molding of, call it net or system or vessel of perception that can actually find itself in harmony or in sympathy to the need of divinity. So it's actually changed a bit, maybe in a very deep way, the perception of what we call exile. Okay? So it seems that we can experience at this time as a small cycle and in the big cycle I mean in terms of the timing through history of that possibility. So it speaks about being able to see the future, and this is why it's actually the Zohar is starting with looking at what was going down or what descended into Egypt. The first name, which is sons of Israel, does not refer to people, but refer to powers, to what can say angel or the army, that the powers that gathered, or the powers that are gathering around the purpose of revealing or changing the separation state of the world, and definitely of the spirits. And in that, as what we can call as an act of simile, or act of empathy, the family of Jacob is going down to Egypt as well, but it is in relation to. Now, in Egypt, the question always remains whether that kind of vessel, of net of spirit will carry the memory, the attentiveness, the ability to be, the ability to listen, the ability to hear, the state of divinity, and the need to break out from klipot or from the pills. Okay? So when we read it, when we try to educate ourselves or to lend ourselves to the light, to change us in a way that we will be able to actually perceive the need of divinity, is actually the story of the book of Shmot. Okay? What at that time was ready to be part of it, or to integrate with the need of Shekhinah, with the need of divinity. Okay? So it has in it a certain question, inner questioning. It carries an admission, a need, a cry, a sigh, which are mostly expressions of the state of divinity. Okay. So this as well gives us a different sensitivity and definition to prayer. Okay. So we need to see that the birth of Moses is very similar to the extension of Shekhinah to the lower part, which is, one can say, this is an exertion of the will of the Creator. And the will of the Creator is that the vessel the reformed vessel can extend to the lower part of Malchut. Okay? So the beginning of, one can say, a true partnership, maybe with part of humanity, because the experiment, one can say, of the exodus of Egypt as a whole, meaning the exodus of all vessels of will to receive to oneself, failed. What happened, or what was the result or the produce of it, is that those who could take the name upon themselves of that power which is called Israel, and the higher power which is called Israel, could take it as a name, meaning as a purpose on themselves, and therefore they would be called sons of Israel, and part of the Egyptians, which recognize in Moses the power of Messiah, of the power of the way, the reality, or the way the world would evolve, go out with the army of God, which is all the light and all the powers that went into Egypt, into a state, one can say. Exile is partly a state of impregnation, or what we call ibur, in order for those spirits who were designated, or at least there was a revelation for all the sparks that were in a state of falling in what we call the fall of the limbs, or the great shattering of the spirit, could be collected and pulled out of the dominated power of the will to receive, okay, to oneself. So it seems that at least it gave, you can say, it gave the paradigm of hope, the paradigm of the possibility of redemption. Okay, so we're starting with when all those powers, an expression, went down. One can say that it gives rise to the future forms to appear. So the first future form that appears are the midwives. The midwife is a particular form of prophecy, basically feminine in its nature. And midwife, in a way, literally, you would say what the midwife is, what the function of the midwife is, to see that which is born, that is what is to be born, or the newborn. Okay, So the whole issue of the midwife in a portion of Shmot is to do with that. And of course they had the reverence and the awe and the fear of God, because they saw, or they were able to see, what is coming. So it starts with a feminine power that is always related to time of change or time of redemption. Definitely to be able to be sensitive to that power, specific power, or that we call Messiah. And one of the main issues of the Zohar, what do you call it? that Chavurah, the group, the gathering of the people of the Zohar is dealing with in the portion of Shmot. One of them is to do with the coming of Messiah. So we see the paradigm of going into high sort of cover. That's in the whole in the opening statement of the book and the portion, and then we see it with the ability that is being born inside the feminine sensibility. It can be in men, but it's basically feminine quality of the midwife, and then we see the birth of Moshe, which is being put into an ark, like what was humanity that was put in an ark in the time of the deluge. Moses is being put in an ark for 3 months, sort of to be discovered, or to be revealed. But the basic thing is how the identity is being sorted out by that quality of ability to feel that something is changing, that there is a different presence of providence, a different demand from humanity, connecting, one can say. There is a line that is being established between the will of the Creator and the spirits that are willing and able to respond to it. Okay, so it's actually two states of impregnation: one in Egypt and one in the desert. Okay, and it's like it's the first womb and the second womb. One can say that the first womb is just to save something out of, and the second womb is to be able to grow with different qualities, with different presence. Okay, and so we see that Moses himself is being born, is going out to sort himself out, and then is running away, and actually is going into sort of hiding, like the light in Midian, right? Meaning to maybe not so maybe in the sense of what we see, to sort out the identity of being part of the line of Avraham and then joining back by the revelation of the burning bush. That revealing is mistake. It's realigning him to the real duty of the spirit that was born in him, which need to serve Israel in Egypt, or Jacob in Egypt, the family of Jacob in Egypt, as it came to be I think it's in a state of it's ready, it's readiness, you know. And if it will not go out, it will start to rot and it will start to disappear. All the sparks that were sort of collected, and this is why Israel is so successful, even in spite of all the tortures and tribulation. And there is two aspects to it. First, that the Egyptians are starting to recognize what is being taken away, the sparks of light. And the danger is that the sparks of light will not be able to sort of go out of Egypt. And because of forgetfulness and because of the darkness, they will dissipate back to the pure. So this is why this period of those 6 weeks, 6 readings of those portions of Torah are so important to our work. Okay, in all generations, those 6 portions were an intense working and praying and being very vigilant in listening, yeah, and in being attentive to the call of divinity. It has to be always like this, but when in this spirit we are called to be more of its kind in order to be able to serve it better, or at least it's not only a question of serving something that is outside yourself. It's serving something outside yourself in order to become what you should be. Okay, it works like this. It works in reciprocity. Okay, so I'll stop for a moment here and I'll hear you if you have a question about what I said, or so it's in a way it's a revolutionary perception that it does not the state of Israel is not an expression of only of itself. It's first and foremost it's a state of divinity that the outer or the external expression of it is the state of Israel.